Well, hey, everybody. I'm Marshawn Olanio. I am a shift relationship strategist and the founder of Marshawn Olanio Consulting, where I help Black women to shift their mindset, to shift their perspective away about how they're looking at life, as well as shift the way that they're showing up in their lives, in their relationship with themselves first, and then in the relationship with their partner, spouse, as well as everybody else. So, with that being said, we are here speaking with Kamilah. And Kamilah was one of my previous clients, and she's here to just give you some background with who she is, where she was when she first started with me, kind of where she's at now, but then also all of the stuff in between, as much as she wants to share. So, with that being said, I am going to turn the floor over to Kamilah, and allow herself to introduce herself, and then we're going to move forward. Without further ado, Mila.
So yes, it's interesting you saying I'm a previous client because it just sounds funny now that I've been with you for a while. But yes, my name is Kamilah. I go by Mila as well. So I am a mom. That's my most important job. My son is not going to be 9 in a few days, so that's most of my job. But then I have a real job as well as a obesity consultant, and you probably can guess which job is more challenging. But I am an obesity consultant. I also manage people and workflows for my job. So I do wear a lot of different hats, but it keeps me creatively stimulated. So I like doing all of those different things. So I landed here through my friend Kim. She was having a group that I was a part of, a wellness group that Marshawn was there speaking about relationships. And I was really taken aback by her approach to relationships and thinking about how, the focus was on me rather than on the person that I was dating at the time. And so I really was intrigued by that and wanted to know more, and found out that she had a group that she was running, and I decided to join. I really wanted to work on myself. I had done a lot of, I got into obesity and wellness because I had done a lot of changes in my life a few years ago when I was having some issues with my weight and my health, and I wanted to make some changes. So I had worked on all of the different, wellness pillars, my mental and emotional and physical and spiritual health, and thought I had gotten to a better place with it. But the one thing I hadn't really worked on was relationships. My thought about a relationship was that, I had learned a lot from being married and divorced. But I was thinking, okay, well, you get in a relationship and you make it work. And so when I met Marshawn, I was in a place with, relationship with someone that I had known for probably about 20 years at the time. And we had dated off and on for years. We've been friends. We had been through, our own separate relationships with other people, and then we'd come back together. And so I really thought this was somebody that I was going to be with long term, but was finding I was hitting walls and just feeling very somewhat defeated by the situation, but still trying to stick it out. And I was wanting to work on what I could do to make the situation better. And what I was surprised to learn was that I had so much work to do in this season, things that I had to change and fix and improve. I had really made great strides in my career, which a lot of times we think that is the key to our life. I'm getting promoted, I have this going and that going, and but I was still, just really not focusing on those personal relationships. And so that really changed my perspective. By the time I got in the group, we started talking about it. At the beginning, I wasn't ready to let the relationship go, but within a few months of goal setting and just talking through some things, I eventually let the relationship go. I was able to buy a home, moved forward financially in very significant ways just in those few months in the beginning. And I found that I just needed that push. I needed that impetus to start to look at my own life and start to enjoy my own life, because as a medical professional, my whole life before my son was medicine. So it became a thing where I had to really realize that, okay, now that you're in this new season as a newly single woman, but not just a single woman, but a single mom, you have to decide what this is going to look like in this season. And it's not just about the relationship, it's also about your relationship with yourself. And that was the main thing that I learned, and really have learned to embrace in this season.
Okay, so you brought up something that I wanted to ask, which is what you said when you first came to me. Well, no, you saw me speaking, and the way that I had described relationships, and basically you had to focus more on yourself. And so, can you go a little bit deeper into that? What did that really mean for you? Was it a shock? Was it like, what? No, wait a minute, it's him. So, like, what did that really mean to you?
It wasn't a shock. It was more so just a different perspective. And I should let everyone know that, I myself consider myself a coach, having had, taken care of patients for so long. You kind of end up being a coach. And then I coached for a little while on my own in wellness. And I really have learned to embrace the value in coaching and learning more about yourself. And what intrigued me about this particular approach was that most relationship coaches or relationship gurus, so to speak, are always talking about things like, this is what you should do for your partner, and this is what you should do to get their attention, or this is what men don't like, and this is what women do like, and all of those kinds of things. And some of those things are valuable, and I really do and believe in learning a lot about a lot of different things. But the difference here was the not just what I could do for him, but what I could do for me in the relationship. And so it was a different approach in the sense that now I'm not focusing on, well, I came into it thinking, oh, she's going to help me figure out what to do with this guy because I'm hitting these walls and I'm not sure what it is. But I want to make sure I'm coming into the relationship as my best self. So I did have that in my head, but it was more so like, oh, we're going to learn how to relate better to our partners. And maybe I can understand him more or understand what he needs more, since he wasn't telling me, is, the hidden statements here. And so I'm like, oh, okay, this is what it's going to be. But, as soon as I joined, I realized that we were really focusing more on us. And that was some of the things you had talked about in when you were doing your interview with Kim, was, that, we have to think about what we want and how we want to show up and so forth. And so it's just a different perspective, like kind of turning that camera lens on yourself where you are. And I think the difference was, I think the thing that did surprise me was I was thinking more of like, how can I change myself, or not change myself, but like, how can I shift my perspective to be one that's a more engaging wife, girlfriend, so forth. Whereas it was more so like, how am I treating me? Because at the time I was not focused on myself at all. I was really doing a lot of external things and seeing my life improve, but just not moving forward with me. And so I think that was really what was the difference. And I think the more we got into it, the more it became that. It was like I still had that inkling of, okay, well, we're still dealing with this other person, but it came around to, well, hey, what about them treating you the way that you deserve to be treated? And if they're not doing that, how are we going to handle that? Is that, if you're not ready to let go of it, then don't. But, is this really where you want to be for you, and not just dealing with it? And so something that I had thought about that I hadn't realized before was that when I approach relationships, even well before this, in my marriage and other relationships I've had, I always looked at it as, you find your person, you get along, you have fun together, and then you just make it work. And in all of those cases, I wasn't focusing on me. And that was why I wouldn't say the only reason why, but why some of the relationships didn't work out, because in some instances, I didn't even know myself well enough to, be a good partner, or I won't even say I wasn't a good partner, but to be the partner I would want to be, and it makes it harder for you to show up fully for someone else when you're not giving that to yourself. And so that was what really struck me and really pulled me in as I started the program.
Okay, so what did you do specifically? Some of the specifics that you did to start focusing on yourself, to really go deep, introspective.
Um, I know we did a lot of, we were reading books that were really helpful and insightful and helped us to think about things in different ways. And so that was something that was great. But even more deeply, I think one of the things that helped me the most was goal setting. I've been in coaching programs, I've been asked to set goals before, but it was like, okay, we're in this relationship coaching program, but I'm setting goals for me, and you don't realize it at the time, but you start to really focus on what you want for you. And at the time, just to give a glimpse into where I was growing a career, that the career that I wanted, doing something I'm very passionate about. And so to me, that was the thing. And that had always been the thing before, getting to a certain place in my career. And so I was a mom, I was starting to hit my stride as a mom, I was getting used to being a mom and doing the mom things. I had left a job that was very toxic, from my standpoint. And that was just not fitting me, not feeding me anymore, to take a big leap to a new career. So to me, I had achieved, what I needed to achieve in this new season. But I had to start really focusing on me. So in the background, I'm doing all of that. But as you know, with a job change comes financial change. So I took a pay cut initially to take this new job, and it was just going from full-time to part-time essentially, and taking going out on faith, trusting God that things would work out, and they worked out in a big way. But doing that led me to kind of just stop living in a way, even though I was really thriving in my career. I was really happy with my career. Still am. I was living in a space that was small. I was not buying anything other than food, which, my financial planner still is puzzled by, but I spend a lot of money on food. So was not spending money on anything else. And it's not that you should just be out spending money, but it became this thing like, oh, we don't want to spend that. We want to just stay here and stay, and stay in this place because, we're making less and this and that. And I realized that I had made my world and myself as a result very, very small. And I wasn't allowing myself things. And it wasn't about material things, but it was really how I was dealing with it. It was really about scarcity. And a lot of the things that improved in my life have to do with me tackling the scarcity mindset of, there's not enough men to date. There's not enough money in the world. There's not enough jobs. There's no other place I can work at. All of these things that kept me stuck for so long. And I was right back in that place. I had liberated myself in a way, but I was right back in that place. So it was almost like the walls in my apartment started to close in. I knew I wanted to buy a house, but I was scared to buy the house due to scarcity. I wouldn't look at my finances. I wasn't looking at all the wellness stuff I had worked on before. I wasn't really doing that. I wasn't taking care of my body the way I had. So all of that stuff had started to reverse because I was just trying to keep my world so small and so tight, because I'm like, oh, we're here, I'm going to keep the same car. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. We're just going to just stay in the same place. And once I started to focus on myself, I started to think bigger, and I don't know exactly which thing, probably the goals mostly, that led me out of that shell and starting to think, okay, I do want a house. I do want a better car. I do want to experience some of these other things. I love to decorate. It'd be great to have my own actual space, and not be living in an apartment. Not that there's anything wrong with apartment living, but I had outgrown it long ago, but I was just trying to, stay where I was. And so once I started doing that, it was like you wake up and you're like, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I not doing these other things? There's just so much else I could be doing in the world. One of the things that comes to mind as I'm talking about that is also things that I love doing, like travel. I like to travel. I like to get on a plane and go somewhere. I like to go to shows. Even if an artist is coming to my city, I will purposely find another city to go to just to visit and get out of the house, out of the area. So I love that, but I had stopped doing that because I was so focused on trying to have a relationship and making that relationship be the thing. And so I noticed I started dragging my friends to events because I wanted to have somebody with me. It was important to have somebody with me. I was tired of doing stuff by myself. And then I started thinking like, you're making yourself miserable because again, you're making yourself small. You're not branching out. You're just doing what you can do that involves, less hoopla, which is my favorite word. I always say I hate hoopla, but it was like, I just, oh, I can't go because nobody can go with me, or this person can't afford to go, or this person can't, make it at that time. And I just had to say, you know what, like you are starting to really thrive in your career. You work hard. Why can't you play hard? And so a lot of those things started to shift when I really started noticing that. And those are some of the deeper things I did, was really to start understanding. I'd say the main thing I did was starting to understand what I wanted out of life. And it wasn't where I was at the time. Career-wise, yes, but it just wasn't, the rest of it just wasn't giving me what I needed. I was even, something else that struck me was, my son. My son is turning 9, like I said, soon. And one day it just hit me that 9 is half of 18, and you kind of focus, especially as a divorced mom, you focus on the custody agreement and like, oh, he'll be 18 and then we won't have to have this agreement anymore. And me and my ex-husband co-parent very well, but it was like, man, like we're halfway through. He'll be grown and doing his own thing, and I'm like, we're just staying in this apartment and saving money. So I was like, no, I've got to do better for him. I want him to branch out and see the world and see me thriving and doing things. So that was also a very big, very deep change that I had to make as well, that led me to where I am now.
Okay, so you brought up scarcity, and scarcity has been a big part of your life for many years. Um,
Mhm.
what made you start taking that leap of faith to say, I just have to do this? Like, literally, kind of like, I want to say pinpoint, but like, you know what? I want to buy this house. I'm going to go buy this house. Or I want to
Mhm.
buy a car. I'm going to go buy the car. So,
Mhm.
what made you literally say, I'm going to take this leap of faith and do it?
Mhm. So it's kind of funny. I believe that God speaks to me in various ways. And years ago, he had, when had sworn off marriage and home ownership, all of it. I was like, I'm not doing it. And I'm just gonna stay in an apartment. It's easier. We're good. It's just me and my son. We're great. And he would lead me to, because I really love home decor and stuff. And I would go to these like house showings, and I always go to the Parade of Homes every year and just love it and can stay there for hours. And I just love that type of stuff. So I would always go and see the new homes. Particular builder, when they built new homes in the area, and the neighborhood I live in now, I came to when they were just starting to build it. And me and my mom came out to see the model, and the house that I saw had some features that I really loved. And I was like, oh, if I got a house, I would. But at the time, I couldn't afford the house. I couldn't afford to buy a house at that time. I wasn't prepared financially. And so that was several years ago. So fast forward, where I've sworn off home ownership and all this stuff. And,
Thought you did.
God is still telling, I'm sorry.
I just said you thought you sworn it off. You thought you did.
Right. So God will just keep putting it back in your heart. Like, no, you need a home. And a lot of people think of it as material or materialistic. And I'm like, no, there's something God wants to do with a house. He's told me that very clearly. And even though I don't want a house or feel like I don't want a house, he keeps telling me that that's where I'm supposed to be. And so, once what made me make the decision was, it was something silly, like something happened. I don't remember exactly what happened, but the apartment people got on my nerves. Like and he did that with my old job. It was like these dumb things would happen that would just irritate my soul. And then I would be like, oh, okay, I gotta change something. And I don't remember what it was, but they were, some nitpicking something or changing something or whatever. And I also started to feel like the walls were closing in. I started to notice that me and my son were just kind of on top of each other. We were always in the same place because we're just always together. But like it just felt small. It felt like he was getting bigger and the house was getting smaller, and I just needed something different. And so I knew what I needed to do was check finances. I didn't want to do that. So I had no idea what my credit score was. I had no idea where things were. I thought everything was still just terrible from the financial issues I had before. So I just assumed it was bad and I wasn't going to look. And I actually ended up forcing myself to talk to a realtor because I had set a goal to buy a house, and that was really what led to it. Like, you're going to buy this house. And I kept trying to put it off and all that, like, oh, I got to check my credit and stuff. So I met with a realtor without checking credit or doing any of that because I just said, well, I'll at least do that. I'll talk to them and see what they say. Like, I'm not going to be able to buy a house in this market. It's crazy, but I'll see what they say. So then once I met with this realtor, I really liked her. We really got along right off the bat. And I ended up wanting to work with her. And the first thing she told me was, oh, I have a couple loan officers I work closely with. I can get you in touch with them within a few days. She had them emailing me, and of course it's in her interest, but it was almost like God knew what I needed. I needed somebody that was going to help me take the steps. And so they got me so excited about buying a house, which was like surprise to me because I was just kind of barely putting my toe in. Um, that I decided to check my credit, and my credit was way better than I thought it was, and was in a way better position than I thought it was. And then I took the next step of talking to the loan officers and took the next step of, making appointments with them. And so it went from there to where, in a crazy market, like an absolutely crazy market, I started looking. I was still trying to put it off. So I was going to buy the house in the spring of 2023. I was like, I'll start looking then in spring and summer. And one of the loan officers, who I didn't end up going with, but he said something important. He was like, well, what's keeping you from looking now? And I didn't have an answer. I was like, well, my lease isn't up until July. And, I don't know. I just think that'll be a better time. He was like, well, with the way the market is, if you don't start looking now, you might, or if you did start looking now, you might see a house you really like and you might be able to go ahead and, get it. Now at this time, I'm still terrified because I don't know what my credit looks like. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to afford a house. And, I was like, okay. And then I got to thinking about it and I was like, maybe I can really do this. And then I looked at my credit and this was right at the turn of the new year. And I was like, I think I'm going to go ahead and start looking. And then that changed everything. I started seeing houses. We would come home from looking at houses and we go, isn't this small? This space is so small. so, so I started to realize how I had just like squeezed myself in so many different ways, but literally squeezed myself into this small space just to, I don't know, feel like I was doing the right thing. And I just realized like, you do want more. You want more for your life. You want more for your son. And then he became the impetus because he's been asking for a house for years. I always tell Marshawn that people, my son is always, he's like God's little messenger. So he'll just walk up and say stuff to me that I need to be working on. And then he'll walk away. And this is how it was with the house. He was like, no, we're going to get a house and this is what we're going to do. We're going to buy this type of house and I want this type of basement. And I want, like he was on it. So after I got him involved, there was no turning back, but yeah, it just kind of rolled from there. And then once I knew I could buy the house and afford the house, then it was just like, man, I wish I had thought about this sooner, but it was the perfect time for us. And so we ended up closing on our house in March and did a slow move after that, which was also something I did for myself. But I'm turning in my apartment keys tomorrow, actually. So
What?
we're finally fully in our house. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
congratulations. Congratulations. I know that's a big step, big deal. Okay, so I don't know if you remember us talking about this, and I just wanted you to explain it just a little bit deeper, which was how I don't remember how you phrased it, but you were saying how kind of like you were in the fog with everything, like in this dark space. You were in the dark time of your life in this dark space. Can you kind of explain a little bit of what that looked like for you, what that felt for you, and what made you even see that you were in a darker space? Because while you were in it, you didn't see it, but now looking back, you can see that you were in a dark space. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you said that, it made me think of this one moment that was pivotal for me before joining the group, where it probably started then, and I wasn't aware of it. I was just thinking I was in a dark place. But, there's a lot of burnout, well, in a lot of careers, but especially in medicine. And I definitely dealt with that a little bit. And then as I progressed through like getting my new job and doing all that stuff, I was just happy there doing what I needed to do. And I was focused on being a mom. And I was in a place where I was, again, scrimping and saving and just trying to stay small. And Christmas hit. And usually I'm kind of I really love the Grinch and I act like the Grinch around Christmas time. I really only like the Christian part of Christmas, like going to church and all of that. I have really grown to like just I don't know. I just don't enjoy it. And I realized that. So my son's dad had taken him to his hometown for Christmas for the whole week. And so it was a time for me to just reflect and have time to myself, which I usually enjoy. But I remember just sitting in my chair and it was so literally dark in the apartment. Like my apartment only had one window, which was a patio door on the bottom floor. The other door was the frosted front doors. So everything else was just dark. Beautiful apartment, but just no light in it. And then upstairs there were windows, but it was like they were just like not really anything fancy, just up there. And they were always closed, blinds were always closed. And so I was literally sitting in the dark in my living room with the TV off, just sitting there and just feeling really, really low. And I thought it was the fact that I hadn't dealt with the burnout. Like, okay, you haven't dealt with the burnout, which it was probably part of that. But it was also like I had remained in this working part-time at the time, just not even thinking about changing to full-time because I was also worried about the scarcity of time, where I had put so much effort into my job previously in my career. Previously, I was scared to branch out and do more in my career at that moment, because I was like, oh, then I won't have time with my son and this and that. Again, another scarcity issue. So I was, there and I'm like, something's got to change. Like, this is really dark. And so, of course, he comes back home and I emerge from it and I start to get involved with things. And that turning point was me saying, you know what, why not work full time? You really enjoy the job. It's not the same as what you've been through before. You can make changes with this. You can start to do more things. You can see what your interests are. And I branched out that way and it really helped me a lot. But I was still in the same place, just not doing much else other than building the career. So I started to focus on building the career. And then as time went on, it just became more and more evident that, that was wonderful. And I felt good about it, but I was still kind of just feeling stuck. Like, man, here I am. I'm in an apartment. We're just kind of coasting. We're not doing anything different. We're doing okay, but we're just kind of here and I'm not traveling and I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. And eventually it got to the point where I did start to feel like the walls were closing in. Like I would be in there and I was working from home. So then that was also very evident, where the chair that I was sitting in that I just mentioned was also my workspace. And then the dining table was 2 inches from the chair. And then there was 4 chairs at the dining table. Like everything's on top of each other. And I'm also somebody that doesn't like a lot of stuff in my space. I'm kind of minimalist. And so I started to get really bothered by that. And there was just so much stuff. And I was trying to throw stuff away, but the more I threw away, the more was there. And I really realized now that was just that darkness kind of coming in, like just feeling like, man, there's something so heavy around me, that, there's something I'm missing. There's something I'm not doing. And it turned out that it was that I wasn't focusing on what I really wanted. I thought that's what I wanted because I was trying to be responsible and trying to really be careful with, everything. And, oh, I don't want us to be, on the street. And it's like, ma'am, you have a advanced degree, you have several skills, like you're probably not going to have that issue. But I just couldn't pull myself out of the scarcity. And so I got to a point where it was like, man, I really need something different. Then around that time was when, I met you and started to think like, okay, I've got to tackle this thing. Because the other side of that, which we talked about a lot, is that I was essentially avoiding relationships. And I was in a relationship, as I mentioned earlier, but he was living in a different state. So it made it easy for me to really avoid relationships. I only had to deal with him when he was around. And then I was fighting him to get him to be around. So it's like I didn't have to really deal with him. I was pushing that whole part of my life away, but yet really yearning for it at the same time. And so all of that kind of, closed in on me around the same time.
Yeah, yeah, understood. Okay. Okay. So you just brought up relationship with your ex. And so we know where you were at before. Where are you at now? Are you on the dating scene? Are you in a relationship? Are you still like, no, where are you at now?
So, I go back and forth. While I was in the group, I made a lot of strides. I've talked about like the home ownership, my job. I got 2 promotions while I was part of this group. I started to make some very tangible and achieve some personal goals I had otherwise. And the one thing I was still avoiding was relationships. And I actually was part of an anthology of other female physicians that talked about our business, because at one point I was wanting to be a coach and wanting to branch out of, traditional medicine. And the chapter I wrote starts talking about me hating dating, which is funny to me because it's just like my tagline. Essentially, if I was on the Real Housewives, that would be my tagline. I hate dating. So it's the thing I fear and dislike the most in the world. And you've helped me work through that quite a bit. But I ended up, as I alluded to earlier, I ended up ending the relationship. It really wasn't an end. Usually you have to talk to somebody and kind of end things formally. But I just kind of stopped interacting. We weren't in the same city, weren't in the same state. He wasn't giving me the attention or the acknowledgement I needed. He just wasn't trying, essentially. And as much as I loved and do love him, I had to think about me and start saying, what do I want? And is this what I want? If not, then and then I will, I won't interact with him. So what I did was, he's kind of like a very regimented person. He's a busy guy, and he will reach out on all holidays, birthdays, anything like that, Valentine's Day, all that. And it got to the point where, he got to one, he would just interact with me less and less over time. And then it got to where he just stopped interacting much at all. But then he would pop up on those special days and it would just kind of spin the spiral again. And I was like, okay, I'm in control here, because if I answer him, then we keep this going and I keep thinking it's going to go somewhere and it doesn't. So the last time he messaged me, which was on I think Valentine's Day, I said, I'm just not going to say anything back. And I didn't. And I had never really done that to him. And maybe once or twice in the past, but not to this extent where it was like, no, I have to do this. I have to kind of stop interacting. So that was the end of that. He has not reached out since, and I have not reached out to him. But for people that are watching, do I want to? Sometimes, but I just fight the urge because I have learned to really turn that inward and be like, okay, why are you wanting to do that? And how does it make you feel when you don't get reciprocal treatment? So I have really learned to ignore that urge. Now, as far as me dating, something else that I stepped into while I was in the group was starting to really turn my perspective on it. I've tried online dating a million times. It seems like had a few weird dates that Marshawn won't let me talk about. And I I just kind of said, well, I've got to be seen. I don't have to chase anyone. I don't have to force a relationship. My way of dating before was like this idea that, oh, you have to make yourself available and you've got to be really open and flexible. And you've got to be, because you hear all these things about, women not doing enough or being enough, or, that we want too much or we want too little, or, it's just all of that pressure. And I said, the thing that I can do is be available. And so what I've done is made some steps to start just changing how I present myself. I love to dress and I love to dress in colors, but I had started dressing like a work from home person, like most of us do, where you might have on, a nice shirt, or you do your hair, but you have on your gym shorts, or you don't have to get dressed. So,
bottom is something different.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, you're just kind of home all the time. I'm literally a baseball mom, so I'm kind of a stay-at-home mom with a full-time job, which is really interesting. So you're just doing the stuff. You're doing comfortable clothes, you're doing that. So I started saying, I'm going to make myself visible. And I do that by anytime I go out of the house, I try to be really mindful about what I have on. It's not about impressing anybody. I've always enjoyed dressing myself. So it's it makes me feel better. So even when I'm sitting here and I'm working and I have to do Zoom for my job, but I dress up for it. I'll put jewelry on and I'll, put a little bit of blush on or do stuff like that to start to be in that mindset. And then when I'm out and I go to church or I go wherever, even if it's just the grocery store, I try to make sure I'm presentable and not just rolling out the house, looking any kind of way. But then I also put myself back on the dating apps, which is a little challenging. Sometimes it's enjoyable, sometimes not. I haven't had an actual date yet because I've also learned to be more discerning with that, which does make it harder. And because there's so many options, you could, if you wanted to, you could date all kinds of people on there. But I've learned that I really have to be discerning because I don't want that. I don't want to just date people for the sake of dating. I really want to find someone that I'm attracted to, which is important, but also that will really speak to my soul. It will be somebody I really can either be great friends with or somebody that can become my significant other. So it's not a matter of it used to be with me of, okay, I'm looking for a relationship. I want a relationship. Let's just get in a relationship. It's yeah, I really want to be friends. I really want to get to know this person and really want to get to know them. And so it's a different experience where I find myself not looking at it all the time. You know, the apps, they have everything you need. They will email you, they will text you, they will send you, you know, pics of the week. They do all
Oh,
of that.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
picks of the week. Oh, that's something new.
Yeah,
Okay.
they send you, like, you know, pictures of a few guys and, like, you know, if it's somebody, "Oh, this person seems really compatible," it's like, "Oh, this is weird." So, but yeah, I've been doing that. I'm taking very small steps. You know, I've gotten to where I will speak to someone. I used to think that if I spoke to men, um, that I would end up having to run the relationship, and that's something I don't want because I tend to attract men that are kind of passive, and I find that that's not really what I like. Even though I want a man to consider my opinion and I want him to be a partner and not just like a boss, at the same time, I realized in getting to know myself again that I just really don't want to be in charge of the dates and the where we go and what we do and all of that. It's just I'm not interested in that. I have a lot of responsibility during the day. I don't want that at home. So it's like I don't want to be making all the decisions about where we go and what we do. So I had to learn that just saying hello and not having to come up with like a really clever thing to say, just saying hello goes a long way. And then they either respond or they don't, and then I move on. But what's liberating about it is it's not a fear of dating now. It's like I feel fully in control of it. You know, because there was a time where certain men would, you know, kind of they're a little bit more like I like assertive but not aggressive, so they're a little bit more aggressive, and like if you don't answer them, they get mad and they say something mean or they, you know, and I was scared of that, and so I would talk to people I didn't really want to talk to because of that. And I've just learned like sometimes, you know, silence is, you know, an answer. You know, I just don't say anything. Just don't even interact with them. I don't know them. They don't know me. They're just reaching out. I'm not interested. Just don't say anything. You don't have to tell them. You don't have to go around with them. You just don't say anything.
Mhm.
So I've been really liberated by that because it allows me the control of saying, okay, let's be real about what you really want, what you really like, what you're looking for, and that kind of thing. So that's what it's doing. It's really helping me. I'm like, I don't know if I'll find my person on there, but what it's helping me do is to put myself out there, where I'm starting to, you know, take that into the world where I'm like looking at different places. I live in a city where there's a lot of activities that I can go to. And so I try to get out of the house, even if it's just going to, you know, I mean, Menards and Home Depot are my favorite place since I have a house now. But, you know, there's people in there too, you know, so I go to those places and I'm not, you know, they're probably like, oh, these women are in here looking for men. But no, like I want to look at the ladders and the hammers and stuff. So
Oh,
fire
okay.
pit apparatus and all that. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, just making that an outing and going out and doing stuff or taking myself places. You know, I go to the casino like the old ladies in the morning. I'll go and do that. You know, because I don't like crowds, so I'll go like first thing in the morning. But even that is just something I'm doing for me, but it's also me getting out of the house because now that I have a house, it's like you really will see the same 5 people all the time if you don't branch out.
True.
Um,
True.
so yeah, so that's where I am with it. It's less intimidating, it's less scary. It's not something that I fear. I do want a relationship, but because I want a relationship, I want it to be very intentional. I don't feel rushed.
Mhm.
I'm at a point in my life where I don't feel like that clock is ticking. I have my son, you know, I'm thoroughly enjoying him. So it's just like you know, I don't feel that need to rush into anything, and it really feels good because I have be more in control. You know, I can decide what I want and not have to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to deal with somebody's stuff to get married. You know, no, like it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So it's really really nice, and I'm actually enjoying the freedom of that. When my son is with his dad, I have a whole lot of freedom. So I get to do a lot of stuff that I couldn't do if I was like chasing some man down or trying to, you know. So it makes it a lot easier, a lot better for me.
I love it. Okay, so we getting ready to wrap it up, but before we go, there's two more questions. The first one is listening to you speak. I definitely and even witnessing where you were in the beginning versus where you're at today. Can you just wrap it up or sum it up for yourself, but also for those that are going to listen to this? Where were you in the beginning? Where are you now? Let's say emotionally, because we already
Emotional.
know where you were career wise. You
Mhm.
were pretty much good in every area but the relationship
Yep.
area. And it sounds like the relationship with yourself wasn't intact. So where were you emotionally with Mila when you first came in to Mila of today?
Emotionally, I feel like I don't want to say I was sad because, like you said, I had a lot of great things going, and I've just since I took that step out on faith, God has really shown out in my life. So I've had a lot of great things happening. So it's like on the surface, I had a lot of things that everybody would want, in their life, but I think I was very, and I'm not an insecure person, but when it came to relationships, I was very insecure. I was very worried about just and not in the sense that most people think of that as like, oh, they're not going to like me or they're not. I didn't have that issue. I had the issue where men would tell me that I was too good for them, or they would put me on this pedestal, and I would say I was like Tweety Bird. Like they would have me in this cage, and they would sit there and look at me, and they might talk to me nicely, but they'd be like, "Oh no, not right now. I've got to be a certain way for you." So that was the issue I was having. And oddly enough, it made me feel insecure about relationships or about me deserving a relationship. Like maybe there's some, because you still internalize that. Maybe there's something I'm doing. Maybe there's something that I'm giving off that makes men do this. And it was just I always went back and forth about that. But from then to now, I just see relationships totally differently. Since I got divorced, of course, I learned what marriage really is all about. I understand how serious it is. I understand that it's a partnership, and it's kind of a ministry, of its own. And so seeing it that way, I don't see it as an achievement now. It's more so like something that I think I will have eventually. I know I'm meant to be a wife. And so I carry myself that way. It's nothing, like, oh, I'm better than this person, but it's like, no, like I'm going to be really good for somebody and there's somebody that's going to be really good for me. And that's a big difference. So emotionally, I'm much more secure in that, more confident in my singleness, where I'm not walking around like, oh, I'm the only one that's single in my group of friends. I'm the only one that never has a boyfriend. I'm like, I think it's very intentional. I think there was a lot of stuff that God wanted to do through me in other areas of my life that kept me from, I wouldn't have had time for a relationship. And I think that, that it's been very intentional. I think that now that I'm here, it's like, okay, now you're still busy, you still have a lot going on, but now you actually have the time and the emotional stability to be in a relationship. Whereas before there was means to an end, kind of like, oh, now I have a man, kind of thing. But this will be more of a an addition to my life and my son's life versus this thing that I just have to prove something to someone. So I would say I'm much more emotionally stable when it comes to relationships.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that because when we rush into things, right, that's when we end up with riffraff and then we have to get out later on. And so, using your power of discernment and just slowing things down, being more confident, knowing your worth, and showing up differently this time around, I can absolutely say it is going to help you to attract a much more emotionally stable person because you're more emotionally stable, someone that can add to your life and not that you feel like you have to do everything. And so just continuing to believe God, step out on faith, and keep putting yourself out there. And I know that it will work out for you for sure. Of course, I don't, the thing is, we don't know the day, time, or hour, right? It's just sort of like the death. We don't know when that's going to happen, but you being intentional and just staying the course and not rushing in is going to be the blessing, right? That is going to be the blessing. So I'm very happy to hear that. The last question that I have for you, Mila, is anything that you want to share, any other nugget that you would like to impart to anybody that's thinking about coaching that hasn't taken the step, or anything else that you just want to impart to the audience?
So yeah, I have a couple things. I think the coaching thing is great. I would like to speak on that. I think especially in our community, coaching gets kind of I don't know, people don't trust it or they think it's something strange or something they don't need.
Mhm.
Um, I think that it helps you to be a better version of yourself. There's several different types of coaches, different people that have different niches in their coaching. And what I've gotten out of coaching, I've done all kinds of coaching. Relationship coaching I avoided because I didn't want to deal with relationships. But I did, financial coaching and, wellness coaching. And, I always have a coach now. I mean, since I started thinking about coaching myself, I've always kept my own coaches for different things in my life. And what it helps me to do is to really focus, like I said, this one really helped me focus on me more, but it helps me to see other, the world. Like we always talk about getting out and traveling, and that's something I love to do, but there's other ways to see the world too. Like there's so many ways to learn new things, new perspectives. This group being around other women that are going through similar things, we all have very similar things we go through or things we can learn from each other. And I think a lot of times, due to the scarcity in our community, there's a lot of idea like, why would I spend money on a coach? Coaching can be expensive in some cases if you look at it that way. But I think of it the same way as I think of like my doctor. I see a direct primary care doctor who's not in the general medical system, and I have great insurance, and I can go see a doctor with my insurance and pay a certain copay, but I pay extra for her because of the because of the positivity and the nurturing and the improvement she brings to my life. When I go to see her, I can see her for an hour. People are like, really? I'm like, that's what I'm saying. And it's not really that much more expensive than a copay in the doctor's office. It's like I get a whole different experience. And that's how I feel about coaching. It's something that you can't get everywhere, and every coach won't be for you. But I really encourage anyone who's on the fence about it, or thinking it's weird, or thinking it's not useful, to really think about at least trying it, especially for something you've been struggling with. Because sometimes you just need that help. I would still be saying how much I hated dating if I hadn't done this particular coaching program, and is that going to help me when I'm saying I'm a wife? I'm a wife, I'm going to have to date at some point. So, it's just one of those things where I think coaching is, I think I can't stress that enough. It's just so important in every aspect of your life, whether it's, you want to lose weight, you want to change your health, there's just so many different ways that you could be coached, and to avoid it for, scarcity, or, worried about the money or the time or those kind of things is very, is limiting yourself. And so you really want to, I think of it as a gift to myself, is being involved and being enrolled in coaching programs. The other thing I would say is something that I'm passionate about. I didn't mention that I'm also a podcaster and a writer, and, I love those kinds of creative things too. But my podcasting platform was about single moms. And I think something that I want to say here is that, I have developed a really great relationship with my co-parent, my ex-husband. And we are able to have our own lives, but also come together for the sake of our son. But something that I see a lot is that it's seen as kind of unrealistic, or people think that they have to struggle as a single parent. It doesn't have to be like that. My son is as bougie as they come because he has the best of both worlds, so he's living his best life, so I don't know that we would have been more helpful to him by being together, necessarily. And so I just want to leave whoever's listening with that sentiment, that it doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be, no matter what your situation is, it doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be hard. Enjoy your child. A lot of times we spend so much time either holding them too tight or trying to get away so we can do other stuff. And I found a way to balance that, because you do need time yourself. So don't do that. Don't tell him he can't take the child. Of course, if it's not safe, then that's one thing. But your child needs their other parent. If they're there, let them do that. You need your time too. And coaching is one way you can do that. And just investing in yourself. Because when I invest in me, I just see my son light up. If he sees me doing things that I enjoy, seeing me buy a house was really important to me, that he saw me doing that as a single mom, because in my mind is, from what I was thinking, even though I knew better, I'm thinking like, oh, how am I going to buy this house? This is a family house and it's just him and I. Well, he and I are the family. So I had to really change the way that looks, and anybody that comes into our family is being blessed, and it's not an ego thing. It's like, you're getting me, you're getting my son, and we're embracing you as part of our family. And it's not this thing where you're going to accept, or, sometimes we think as single moms, like somebody is, oh, that's so great that he came in and, he's willing to, no, like, this needs to be a blessing to him as well. And if we carry ourselves that way, then the person that comes into our lives will feel that way as well. So I think it's so important for, I'm always partial to single moms to really just start living your life, because I think that's part of what keeps us stuck. It's like, I'm a mom, and if I do this or that and I spend all my money and then I won't have money for my child or my children. No, your child wants to see you thriving. They want to see you living your life. They want to see you, happy and doing things. So definitely keep that in mind, and also enjoy them. Just enjoy every minute you have with them. Take them places, do stuff with them. You're not going to spoil them. Just take them and do stuff. They're going to be bougie whatever you do. So, especially in my, so, but just enjoy your life, essentially. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, listen, you brought up your podcast. Is that a place where people can follow you to be inspired, specifically single moms? If it is, do you want to say it here?
Yeah, it's still out there. My son comes and reminds me often that I need to get it going again. My last episode was March of 2022. But I have like about 2 years of content there. A lot of health and wellness stuff, a lot of stuff about being single moms. It went from Pivot and Bloom was the original name to the Single Well. We started to become more about being a single mom, and I do plan on bringing that back in some capacity, and just talking about my life and what I just talked about. How do you do that? How do you thrive as a single mom? And so it's out there. It's on every podcast platform. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, Google, Audible has podcasts. Anywhere you can find podcasts, you can find it. So if you look up the Single Well, all of the episodes are now under that name. So it's just the Single Well in three separate words. But yeah, so it is out there. It's still great content. I have not taken it down, and people still download it. So it's helping somebody somewhere.
Well, that's what it's all about. So thank you so much, Mila. You have been a blessing more than you even know. I'm sure that you have helped plenty of women, and even there are going to be some men that watch this, but plenty of people out there just to see the beauty in themselves, to see the beauty in investing in themselves via the platform of coaching, but then also to reflect on where you were to where you are now and how much better your life has been. So thank you so much for coming here today, sharing your story. You have been a blessing not only to me, because you actually shared some extra things that I didn't even know. And so it's really great to hear you thriving and not being scared to step out there and date even more, because as you mentioned, you know that you want to be a wife, you got to put yourself out there. You can't think that the mailman is coming to knock on the door, and that life, that life, for our parents and grandparents has now gone. Where the milkman was the dad. That just not there anymore. So with that being said, I'm super, super grateful that you decided to say yes to the interview. And I look forward to seeing you, to following you, and even watching you grow and thrive even more, and especially being invited to the wedding. Just saying. All right, y'all. With that being said, I am Marshawn Olanio. I am your favorite shift relationship strategist. We are wrapping this thing up. And until next time, we will see you next time when we have another conversation with one of my other clients. All right. Bye now.